r/Askreddit. How did your friend destroy the friendship? I'll be the first to admit that it was my fault. I had this friend for about 2 years, and I felt more comfortable with him than I did with anybody else. I could talk to him about anything, and we hung out almost every day for those 2 years. I thought we were inseparable. In retrospect, I feel like I took that for granted. The beginning of the end started when I started dating this girl. I dated her for about 4 months, and it was the most serious relationship I've been in, and the first relationship I had been in since a previous abusive relationship of mine. So I was pretty fragile, but I was really happy, and I trusted her. Towards the end of those 4 months she falls out of love with me, and I don't know why, and it's killing me, and I'm in a bad headspace. She breaks up with me, and a week later I found out she was cheating on me, so I just lose my shit, and I snap, and I text this group chat that had my friend, and about 7 of our mutual friends at the time. I just lose my shit talking about she's a cunt, she's a bitch, she's a whore, fuck her, I hope she dies. I just lose my shit. And they saw all of it. And they all leave the group chat. I text my friend and ask him if we are friends, and he says yeah, I think. So then a week later he replies again, actually, no, I don't like who you've become. And that was it. I heard from some other mutual friends they're telling people that I'm a misogynistic woman hater. After all of that, him or them haven't talked to me directly since. I don't have anything close to a friend group or a best friend like him anymore. I'm lonely most of the time and I don't have anyone to talk to. This happened about a year ago, but I still think about it almost every day, and I'm not gonna lie, I cry a lot. I miss him. Part of me is mad at me, part of me is mad at them. I shouldn't have said or done the things I did, but I wish they had understood better that I was hurt and in the lowest point in my life, and I was saying those things to them, so I wouldn't say them publicly or to her face, because I trusted them and still had the decency to respect the girl, even after she cheated on me. Ironically, me and her are friends again, but I'll never have him or those people back. I barely care about the rest of them. I've tried multiple times to reconcile with him. I'm really trying my best to be a better person. I've done so much therapy and group sessions and fixed some of my vices. Former sex addict, and I'm just trying to be the best me, so maybe I'll have another chance with him. But he never replies. I'd give up everything to have my best friend back. Let's call her Emily. She has been suicidal for a long time. She was very pretty and always spoke about how people just used her and viewed her as a retention whore. I was always there for her in high school. I was always there to listen. I took her out to eat, did silly things to make her laugh. I loved her with all my heart and wished nothing but the best for her. One day I came home from school and got a phone call from a close friend and asked if I knew where Emily lived, and I said no. When I asked why, he got quiet and told me he'll call me to check FB. Turns out, Emily made a video of her saying how she will be killing herself that day and told everyone goodbye. My friend was currently trying to figure out where she lived so he can send an ambulance ASAP. I cried and kept calling her with no answer. Later that day, we see Emily posted a status saying that she's in the hospital now and that she wasn't actually going to kill herself, but was only thinking about it, and whoever called the ambulance owes her parents money for the bill. The next day, when I saw her, I sobbed as I ran to hug her tight. I told her to never to do this again. As we graduated high school, I was still there when she needed me. But one day she unfriended me on FB and a bunch of other people. Someone told me she made a post saying that she's not going to talk to people who never helped her through her troubles and were fake friends. Some people didn't care, but when my friends found out she broke ties with me, they were shocked. They knew all the things I did for her, but to her, everything I did for her meant nothing. She threw away my friendship and love for her. This was the first time I ever been betrayed by a friend. So since she thinks I'm not worth her time anymore, I just let it be. No phone calls or texts. We go to the same college. Sometimes we bump into each other, but she completely pretends I'm not there. I wish her well in life and hope she doesn't kill herself, but she'll never be loved the same way again. Back when I was in middle school, I had a really good friend named Steve. We would always play GoldenEye for N64. He was a taller fellow, so he would always choose Jaws. For those of you who don't know, Jaws is freakishly tall. So just to fuck with him, I would choose Ojab. For those of you who don't know as well, Ojab is freakishly short. We would always have karate chop matches. He would never kill me. He got pissed off one day because he didn't hit me once after I have killed him 3 times. He called me a cheater and left crying. I was like WTF. Then eventually we stopped playing GoldenEye because he couldn't handle losing. That was the backstory. High school came along, we were still friends, but in different tracks, so we didn't have the same classes. He would still come over every time we had a family get together. When family came over we would always play Monopoly. House rules always applied, but was never to a point where it was unfair. With one exception, if you landed on a property and you were family, the owner of the property can give you a family discount. Anywhere from 25% off to a free hotel stay. But when that happened, the owner would have give the person who landed on it a money slap. What's a money slap? Just get all your paper Monopoly money and slap the person in the face with it. So Steve lands on Pennsylvania Avenue. I had all the green properties with hotels on them. He was broke, but still had the orange properties with 1 hotel on New York and 4 houses on Tennessee, and 3 railroads. He knew it was game over if I had charged him full price. He had asked for a family discount with a free hotel stay. He wasn't family, I couldn't give it to him. Rules are rules. He got pissed off that I didn't consider him family. He then flipped the board over and all my other family was like WTF. He stormed off and said while leaving, "Fuck you, your family, and fuck you for always choosing to Ojab." He then left. Tried to talk to him after that, and he just didn't want to talk to me anymore. He felt betrayed that I didn't consider him family. Guess I dodged a bullet on that one, because I found out about 4 years ago that he is a convicted rapist and had murdered 3 people. Good thing I saw the crazier side before anything. Got admittedly too drunk the other night, while 2 of my friends and a girl I'm talking with were over and drinking as well. This girl is pretty into me, and we are both dirty talking the hell out of each other. I probably laid it on a little thick in front of the boys, I'll be honest. The night progressed, and this girl becomes upset, mostly due to the alcohol, but also because of recent upsetting events in her life, and it quickly spirals into an anxiety attack. We get alone in my room and I try to talk with and calm her down for a while, but as things like this are, I wasn't of much help. She's crying and beating herself up, and it wasn't a great night by that point, so I put the girl and my hopes of getting laid to rest. I rejoin my friends, but they say they were just on their way out, giving me some shady looks. It was nearly 4 AM at this point, so I thought it strange, but thought I'd best deal with it tomorrow once I'd gotten rest and sobered up. I passed it off that they were upset I had basically ditched them for a while to be with this girl. After being ignored for a large part of the next day, I finally get a response from one of my friends present saying basically, "You have no memory of last night at all? You fucking asshole. I heard everything. I know what you did to her." Supposedly, panic attacks sound an awful lot like unconsensual sex and my friends were absolutely convinced that I was some monster. It worried me sick that my friends would ever think this way about me, but their minds were made up. Once I explained the situation, and even had the girl explain what had happened, one of my friends understood immediately and apologized for the assumption and misconception. The other refuses. He's hurt because he thinks I'm a psychopathic liar, and I'm hurt that he would ever even entertain the idea. But there is nothing to be done now. C'est la vie, and good riddance I suppose. I have a couple in my circle. Let's name them K1 and K2. See, K1 and I are close, but not too close that would make K2 uncomfortable. The thing is, in our circle of friends, K1 was the only who knew about the shit going inside my head. K1 knew and understood my point of view on things, and so much as to why I'm almost pessimistic and suicidal. I never told anyone IRL about this, because I'm just sure they wouldn't understand. After having the most torturous week of my life, I found myself just wanting to have that weekend off and attend a certain gathering. I didn't know how to go there, and since K1 lived close to where the venue was, I asked her for directions. K1 knew that this was the first time in months that I'd actually try to go out and meet new people to put structure in my life, because she knew what I was going through. She had been, I don't know the proper term for it, caring and overprotective. She asked me for updates and would ask how I was over the course of the night. In my part, I thought that it was just K1 being a good friend. In the eyes of K2 though, it was different. Now, K2 and I are friends, and not a chance in hell would I ever think that this would happen. K2 started shitposting about me on Facebook. Although my name wasn't dropped, she made it obvious that it was me. Things like, if you wanted to die so much then why don't you just do it? Or you're such an attention seeker. K1 doesn't care about you. She just pities you. I hope you know that. And so on. That hit me hard. What closed the deal was K1's last text. She did apologize for K2's behavior, but when she said please don't reply to me anymore. K2 will kill me if we talk again. K1 and I had been friends for years. I do understand the fact that she's doing it for K2, but I guess it just confirmed my thoughts that I'm in fact irrational with the shit going on in my head and doesn't deserve to keep any of my friends. My pessimism and social anxiety just got worse because of this. I just hate the fact that I lost 2 friends because of that petty situation. Became supremely unhappy with himself because he traveled around the world, met some high society people, and decided he wanted to join their ranks. And in his quest to do so, he became an incredibly nasty person to be around. Said things that I hope people wouldn't even think. So eventually he started thinking he would try to find ways in which he was better than me and try to exploit them. For example, at the time he had more money and I was just out of college working a low-paying job, so he'd constantly berate me for accepting such a job, saying things like I wouldn't even get out of bed for less than $100k a year. And then he'd talk about starting his business and how he wanted to find in-debt college students to work for him so he could financially fuck them over and purposely treat them like shit so they couldn't afford to quit. He was given a few bucks by his parents, and it went to his head. Eventually he got this class thing in his head where he'd treat people with less money like him like shit, and would justify it by saying they were poor, and so it didn't matter. I brought him to a friend's house. She was having a BBQ, and he tried to hit on some girls, and once they shot down his advancements, he would act belligerent to all of them, until I had to take him home. My friend took me aside and said very seriously, never bring him over again. I felt horrible. He spiraled into this whole thing of treating everybody like shit and justifying it by saying they were poor or in debt, so it was okay and only wealthy people deserve respect. And of course, since I was not wealthy, I was in that camp too. It started to very rapidly get into psychopath territory. I tried to steer the friendship into the right direction when he turned the attention on me and basically berated me for my shitty job, but didn't have the guts to do it directly, just in a roundabout way, perhaps thinking I wouldn't be smart enough to notice. I literally got up, walked to my car and left. And as I was turning on the ignition, I decided the friendship was over. That was a few years ago, and I feel much freer now, though I regret sticking by him and trying to help for so long. In the 1970s I had a friend who lived down the block from me. He would come over to my place and every now and then would want to make a prank phone call. I was a latchkey kid and my mother was hardly home. This irritated me. I didn't care to make crank calls. I would ask myself, why doesn't he do this with the phone at his house? Why come over to do it with my phone? Anyways, one day me and this friend are walking down the street and were going past an empty storefront when he stopped me and asked if I saw anything on the ground. I looked down and just saw a pile of trash on the ground at the entrance of this store, nothing more. He looked around as if to make sure nobody saw him, then reached down and pulled out of the trash what looked like a newspaper clipping. On closer look, it was an advertisement for a hooker. It had a black and white pic of a topless woman along with a phone number. We went back to my place where my friend wanted to make a crank call to that number. He called it, and as soon as somebody picked up, he started making lewd suggestions and cracking what he thought were funny jokes. He waved me over to listen in on the receiver with him, which I did. There were 2 women on the other end of the line and they were laughing and giggling at this little kid making a prank call on them. I don't recall how my friend ended his call, but I do remember that after he finished, he slipped that little advertisement clipping under my phone with instructions to leave it there so that he could come back to make more prank calls to that same number. Next day he came back and brought with him another kid from the neighborhood to take part in his prank call. He lifted the phone and the clipping was gone. I never touched the clipping. I don't know what happened to it. My best educated guess is that my mother found the clipping and threw it away without saying a word to me about it. My friend threw a royal conniption fit. I've never seen him so angry in all the time I've known him. It looked almost as if he was going to strike me or something. He was in such a rage. He kicked a beach ball at me which narrowly missed me. He's never acted like this to me before. Wasn't long after that we started to drift apart and didn't hang out with each other or play together. I guess that incident of him getting angry over the missing clipping was the first big real rift in our friendship. Today, that same kid is an internationally renowned classical pianist. My best mate in high school. Top bloke, shirt off yaback kinda fella. We experienced everything together, all the pre and post pubescent stuff. First fuck around with illegal stuff, drugs, drinks, you name it. At the time both of us were heavily involved in trafficking, weed through our respective schools, and due to my size I was a debt collector of sorts for kids who had stiffed the local dealers. Then through an unfortunate series of events, I cleaned myself up and dropped anything that wasn't legal. Doubt though, he was having too much fun doing his thing. We still caught up as often, but this time I was just on the piss, not shooting gear or smoking dope. He would always ask, I would always decline. This pissed Doug off to the point he cut contact with me one day, really abruptly. Didn't feel the need to pursue a reason. Fast forward about 10 years, Ma rings me, tells me that Doug had rocked up at my folks asking to catch up and bury the hatchet as he was clean, so she gave him my address and he was coming over. The missus didn't know about Doug and was fast asleep anyway, so I just left the door open a crack so I could hear his car pull up. Had a real bad feel in it though, to the point where I grabbed the pacifier, a length of thick regime I'd fashioned into a cudgel from my high school woodwork days that I usually keep near the door, and slid it hidden from sight near the couch. Still don't know why. Moments later, hear a car pull up. I go outside to meet him and could immediately tell something was up. Firstly, Doug was fucking flying, pupils like 5-cent pieces. So much for being clean. Second, instead of his crappy Holden we used to bomb around brought in, he was driving some old Volvo. Now I know his family was the same as mine, pretty much boggin, welfare, and he had Holden lovers, so it struck us odd as hell. We used to nig a few cars for insurance jobs back in the day too. Damn, I haven't thought about that in years. Anyway, after an awkward handshake, I motion him around the back to the shed, basically my man cave. Hit the lights, grab a beer and toss one over to him. Fuck me, he had a rough time. Thin as a whip now, couple of dodgy neck and facial tats. He was pretty fidgety, I guess from the gear he was obviously on. He was rambling about his stint inside, not surprising, how his family had all moved back up north, and how he was clean now. I stopped him there and called him out. Basically said bullshit, can't remember exactly what I said. He insisted it was from cold medicine or something. PFFT. The whole time he was looking around the shed, but only at certain things. Expensive things. Power tools. Gym kit. My gun safe in particular. I didn't like where this was going, so told him we can catch up later on the week or something. I gotta go to bed. He was cool with that, smiled, patted me on the back, and jumped back in his car after I walked him out. I stick me head into say see ya, checked the ignition. Of course there was no key. Couple of days later, I note the gun safe had pry marks on the paint. Now this fucker is locked up good solid steel, anchored to the concrete. It ain't opening unless I open it. Aussie law is pretty hardcore with that shit. Call up the cops, tell them what's happened. They come around and have a squiz. I'll let them know I'm pretty sure I know who tried to open it. Gave them Doug's full name, left it at that. Haven't heard from the bloke in near 15 years. Frankly don't care if I do. This is a throwaway and this will get buried, but I need to get this off my chest. We were casual friends until he started traveling for business a lot and ended up on my side of the country more often. Then, we regularly spent time together and started getting close. We had a lot in common and had a lot of fun together. About 6 months in, he told me he started using cocaine recreationally. One night, he called me at 10 p.m. because he was feeling talkative. I could hear him scraping and tapping with his credit card in the background. I kept him on the phone because I didn't want him to do anything stupid. He talked for 4 hours. This set the tone for the next 2 years. His habit got worse. His phone calls got more frequent. My anxiety got deeper and deeper. He told me I was the only person in his life who really knew him. He told me I was amazing, that he admired me, that he truly felt close to me, that I was his best friend. I believe it, because I've never had experience with cocaine before. I didn't know that had turned him into this charming, reckless, confident person. I believed we were emotionally close. We talked all day every day via text. And I mean all day. And on some level we were very close. I grew to care about him on a deep level. And he grew to love cocaine more and more. During the last 6 months, he started disappearing for 2 or 3 days. I wouldn't hear from him. I'm currently an engineering student, and I need all the focus I can get for school, but I was so invested in his well-being at this point, and so scared he was going to die, that I failed 2 classes during that time. I lost a major internship for NASA and set myself back from graduation by 2 terms. But I was so scared. The ball dropped one weekend, when he went too far. Thank God he decided to check himself into rehab. I flew across the country that weekend to be with him and make sure he was stable that weekend. His treatment went great. He's been clean over a year now. But he also doesn't seem to understand the extent of the damage he wrought over that 2-year period. He tried to make it right, I guess. He bought me an expensive present, offered to help me out of a tight spot, made a big deal about how important I was to him. Told me he was committed to keeping me in his life. And then he started dating someone and just stopped talking to me. And after 2 years of hell, after a lot of broken promises, I don't know, it's just over. He's just gone. As quickly as he came into my life, he has gone. TL. Doctor, don't do drugs, you'll fuck shit up and hurt people. This was around 2003, didn't have a smartphone, and going on holidays meant being completely offline. He knew the password to my email. So while I was for 2 weeks with my parents in Greece, 19yo, last family holiday, before moving away for uni, he accessed my mails, used it to reset the password to my eBay account, and listed a bunch of non-existing items, and put a message in the text saying something to the tone of selling this for a friend who doesn't have his own account. After winning the auction, please wait for email confirmation of payment account info. Note that in Germany, where I live, 99.9% of transactions are settled via bank transfer. We don't have checks or whatever. PayPal wasn't a thing back then, at least in Germany. He auctioned off notebooks, TVs, hard drives, RAM, cameras and other tech stuff. Lucky for me, eBay wasn't too advanced then and didn't yet offer buy now options, and the minimum runtime for auctions was 7 days. Or maybe it was just the default and he forgot to change it. Anyway, after I returned home I had 20 something successful auction emails in my mailbox, and quite a number of inquiries from buyers where to send the money to. Immediately contacted eBay, who cancelled the auctions and notified the buyers, but a couple of them had paid already, about 7k euro in damages. Now in their terms eBay clearly states that all communication must go through their messaging system, and since my friend emailed them directly from his email account, their losses were not covered by eBay's customer protection. If he would have used my eBay account or email for the communication, I guess I might have been liable. So that was my luck again. eBay's legal team informed me that I must file a police record for fraud, which I did, and they took over all communications from there. All but one of the duped buyers eventually let go. The last one insisted that I was in league with my friend and just trying to get away, and that he'd take us to court over some laptop he paid about 1,700 euros for. eBay told me that they were willing to refund the buyer through their insurance if I would contribute 500 euros, some sort of co-payment. As a poor high schooler I agreed reluctantly, and that was the end of the nightmare. I filed another police report against him about the 500 euros that I had to settle, and later learned that he was arrested over some other charges: fare dodging, credit card fraud, petty theft and sentenced to 2 years. He was also 19 or maybe 20 at the time and probably fell under what we call youth court jurisdiction. Was unable to find out though if it was a probation sentence or if he had to do actual jail time. Since the case was pretty clear I never had to appear in court. Apparently he admitted everything in my written statement. Yeah, so we don't talk anymore. Never saw the money again either. The criminal court in Germany, probably elsewhere too, only sets the punishment. For any claims I'd have to take him to civil court. Hope he got run over by a truck or something. Edit. Inspired by writing this out, I just googled him. He was always a tech/nerdy kind of guy, though a clumsy one at that. Up until 2007 his name pops up in various Microsoft dev forums, VB and JavaScript discussion groups etc. And then nothing until 2016. Not a single instance of his name being mentioned. Then he shows up in a publication of a state-run occupational retraining facility listing that he successfully passed his exam to become a certified system administrator. No idea if he was locked away for that period or just hid away from the internet. Either way, I think I need to figure out where he's being employed now and shoot our team a mail. Might post to /r/pro revenge in a couple weeks if that flies. Fucker. Edit 2. Forgot to mention that the article from the retraining center includes a group picture, so I know 100% that it's him and not just someone by the same name, which is not too common, but not unique either. Edit 3. So I checked the retraining facility out a bit more in detail, and their About Us profile states that they are specializing in integration of hardship cases, such as refugees, asylum seekers, former inmates and troubled youths with behavioral issues. So might very well be that he was locked away. I'll try to find out, but maybe it's also just time to let it fly. Final edit. Found his LinkedIn profile. Doesn't show any entries prior to 2012, apparently from then on various minorate jobs. He changed the spelling of his name to a Spanish sounding version. One of his parents is Spanish. Think something like Thomas. That's why he didn't show up earlier. Ah well. Now I'm thinking whether to send him into shock mode by sending a connection request. Final edit. 2. I've already decided to drop the issue. No need to tell me. The money was long since written off. I couldn't care less about the dude. Was just a certain spike in curiosity. And just in case he's still criminal, I don't want him on my doorstep swinging an axe. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the channel.